Let me open up with something that I see almost every single week. A buyer sends me a buy box that looks like a perfect recipe for success. Revenue range, industry, location, cash flow, owner's role. On paper, it looks smart, it's clean, it's well thought out. Probably it's copied and pasted from someone else, but at least there's some thought that's been put into it. And this is where, honestly, deals begin to fall apart. And I'll tell you why. Here's the part that most people miss. That buy box sounds right, but it creates problems you don't see until the deal stalls or dies. And if you've done this before or you're just starting, doesn't really matter, you're not wrong for thinking this way. A buy box is a great starting place, but almost everyone falls into this one mistake, and I see it all the time. I'm Trent Lee. I'm the #1 business broker in the country. I've closed over 650 transactions, and I make these videos to help buyers and sellers avoid the exact pain that shows up after a deal looks good on paper, but they can't actually get it across the finish line. I sit in real deals every day. I'm not selling a course. I'm not trying to get you to buy anything. So I'm telling you what works, what fails, and what actually hurts people after closing. My goal is simple: help you learn this before you learn it the hard way. Now, let me slow down just a little bit. The fantasy is this. If you define the perfect business clearly enough, the right deal will show up and everything will line up. The bank says yes, the seller says yes, life is good. But the reality is a little bit different. The reality is sellers don't sell to spreadsheets and bankers don't lend to ideas. They ask the same quiet question: why you as the buyer? And this is where deals could break if you have a fancy buy box, but you're not the right buyer. So I want to give you one simple way to think about this that actually matches how deals get done. I call it the buy box versus the buyer box. The buy box is what you want: size, industry, location, growth, patterns, how involved the owner is, etc. Whatever is on your buy box. And that part matters. I'm not saying it doesn't. The buy box criteria is still important. But the buyer box is who you are, your work history, your leadership time, your money, your credit history, your comfort running people, your risk tolerance, your experience in that particular industry, in the business that you're looking at. This is what sellers and banks really look at. They're not looking at the buy box, they're looking at the buyer box. Here's the clean rule. Deals close when the buy box fits the buyer box. Deals die when buyers try and force the buyer box into a perfectly good buy box, but they're just not the right fit from a buyer standpoint. Let me give you a simple math example so this isn't so abstract. Say a business makes $300,000 a year after owner pay. The loan payment might be around $220,000 a year. On paper, that works fine. You've got some buffer. It works from a debt service coverage ratio standpoint. But if you've never run a team, if you've never touched the industry, and you're putting your house on the line with a personal guarantee, your family finances are at risk, that's not math risk, it's people risk. You're risking your own family finances for an industry that you have no experience with because it has a fancy buy box rather than focusing on the buyer box. Now, let's just slow that down just a little bit more. Banks look at the ability to repay. Sellers look at the ability to run and operate the business. No one really cares that the spreadsheet looks clean if the person doesn't fit. In other words, your numbers could look fantastic, but if you don't have any experience, any resume, any industry insight, management experience in that particular industry, it becomes a problem to how are you going to operate the business. It's one thing to analyze the numbers, but are you analyzing yourself as the buyer? And this pattern shows up a lot. A buyer with a perfect buy box, but a thin buyer box chases bigger and bigger deals. Meanwhile, another buyer with a solid buyer box adjusts the buy box slightly and closes faster, safer, cleaner deals because they're the right fit behind the scenes. So here's another real world example. A buyer wants $2 million for a business in a niche industry. Strong numbers, but a weak fit. And banks just won't have it. They're stretched, it's risky, and sellers begin to hesitate. Eventually, the deal dies. Later, I sold the same buyer a business for $1.4 million with a smaller team, with a little bit of a smaller business, but in an industry he knew, in an industry he had experience with. It matched his background. That one closed, same buyer, but a different fit because it was the right buyer box, coupled and matched to the right buy box. And this is the human side of buying and selling businesses that people don't talk enough about. So when you buy a business and you sign a personal guarantee, that means your credit is on the line, your savings, your home, your family feels that pressure, even if they never step into the business and it's just you. So the question is not, can the business pay for the loan? Of course, that is a relevant question. The question is, can you run the business when things go sideways? Because they eventually always do. Do you have the right background and the right experience? Do you know the industry to do that, to turn it around, to right the ship, to make pivots and changes? So here's the quiet question I'm considering, or at least I'm suggesting that you ask yourself. But a lot of people don't say it out loud. If this gets hard for 6 months, do you still know what to do? Can you still change it? Can you still run it? Can you still operate it? Can you still turn it around? And let's be fair, that strategy works sometimes if the buyer has the right experience and the right team and the right resources. It works when the buyer box is deep. It's a good fit. There's real operating time. There's a strong money story behind it. There's clear leadership experience. Or when a business is simple, stable, and well-staffed, or a buyer has really good resources to turn to find out what can they do in a situation like this. Now, if you're new, focus on fit over size. Learn how banks think. Learn how sellers decide whose offer to accept. Build your buyer box before you stretch and try and use someone else's buy box that you see that's a fancy, nicely well thought out buy box that someone put online. If you're experienced, this trap is different. You may overestimate how transferable your past wins are. Every industry has its own friction. So here's a simple deal filter I want you to remember and apply. If the deal only works when everything goes right, it's honestly really not that good of a deal. If this video clicked for you, it's probably because you felt the same tension before. Save it, share it with someone else that might be shopping for the right deal. Help them learn that the buyer box is just as important as the buy box. At the end of the day, fit is so much better than fantasy. Hope you enjoyed the video. Take care.